Hello, welcome into the very first episode of the Not All There podcast. I'm your host, Chad, and I'm happy you're here. This is, it's kind of a big deal for me. This is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I finally just said, fuck it, let's make it happen. So here I am making it happen. And you're thinking to yourself, what are you making happen? Well, here's my goal for what I'm embarking on here is to spread the message of hope and offer a safe space and a little bit of dark humor for those who are out there who are struggling with addiction, whether it be alcohol or drugs, whatever it is. And they're out there right now and they're feeling scared. They're feeling ashamed. They're feeling guilty. They feel like everything is their fault, and they're in a lot of agonizing emotional pain and turmoil, and they don't know what to do. They know they need to stop, but they can't. And this cycle is vicious. It's so hard and painful, and it's difficult to ask for help. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. And I'd like to offer this space for people to hear what it's really like from somebody who's currently living it. I'm 9 years sober, and it was not easy to get here, to get to 9 years, to get to be sitting behind a microphone in my basement. It's beautiful and it's amazing, and I never thought that I would be able to be doing the things that I'm doing, having an amazing wife and two healthy, amazing kids, to be coaching every goddamn youth sport under the sun, doing what I'm doing here, living in a cool city like Chicago or a suburb of Chicago. And it's possible, but it takes a lot of work to do it. Okay. And when you're doing the work, sometimes you need to hear it's okay to be doing it. It's okay to feel the way that you are. And it's okay to laugh at the absurdity of what you're trying to do and how you try to explain it to people, and they just look at you like you're a fucking idiot. And that will happen, and that's okay. Stick with it. They'll understand. Or they won't, and it doesn't matter. It's not their business. But hang in there and ask for the help. You could reach out to me if you want. I'll give you an email address at the end of this. You can send anything you want. And if I can offer help, I will. If I can offer a suggestion, I will. And that's all we're doing here is, I'm no professional by any stretch. I'm just going to provide my story, the stories of the people that I'm talking with, some anecdotes about it, and possibly just suggestions of what has worked or hasn't worked in the past. At the end of my drinking, and there were other substances that were involved along the way. I like to have a good time, but alcohol was the constant. It was always there. It was, it's easy to get. It's on every corner. Christ, you can have it delivered to your house now. I don't know what that would have been like for me. Anyway. Yeah. Let's get to it. Here's my friend Rich. And Rich is more of a brother. He's like a soulmate for me. I've known Rich since I've gotten sober, and he's got the biggest heart and a great sense of humor. And, he and I relate on so many levels. And when I made the decision to start this podcast, he was the first person I thought of. And he was so gracious to give me his time and his story and some incredibly, wonderfully hard belly laughs. And, with it being the first one, I beg of your patience, please, because, I'm figuring this thing out as I go along. I'm hitting record and I'm putting it out there, and it's not going to be perfect because, I'm not perfect, and neither are you. All right. We're all a bit of a mess. And as the title of the podcast would suggest, none of us are really there. We don't have our shit together, man. We're just doing the best that we can. Nobody gave us an instruction manual for life, right? We're doing what we're doing, and we're doing it the best we can. So let's have some laughs. Let's support each other. All right. Let's spread some hope around that everything is okay. You know, it's a weird and wacky time, has been for a while, and it will be for a while more, but let's stick together. Let's help each other out. Let's be kind and loving to each other. Okay. And I promised I would give out the email address, which is notalltherepod@gmail.com. Notalltherepod@gmail.com. If you've got feedback, questions, reviews, anything you want to send along, feel free. I welcome it. And that's enough of me rambling. You're going to get more than you bargained for once this thing takes off. Thanks for listening. I'm really happy that you're here. And without further ado, here's Rich.
This is the house you grew up in?
That is the house my dad grew up in. Well, not my dad, but that was like my grandparents had this 1,600 acre dairy ranch. That's it right there. And it's when people, I tell them I'm like I'm from good redneck hillbilly stock, and they're like, yeah, what? Yeah, okay. And so these are like, yeah, that's it. Well, that's where I spent a lot of my time. That's where my dad grew up. Yeah, it was 1,600 acres of that.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man. Yeah. Sat out up next to a lake.
Where was your family originally from?
Let's see. So the family that lived there, they were from Sweden. So my great grandparents, both of them, or grandfathers, I should say, were first generation Americans. But they were born here like right after they landed. So all of this is to say is like half of me is Swedish. So a lot of Swedes.
What's the good part?
I don't know, man.
Okay.
I haven't figured that out yet.
Anything else?
Yeah. I don't know. The part that God gave me.
Just feral folk.
Where's your family from?
My dad grew up in Winnetka for the most part.
Yeah.
And then he went. Then he lived in DC for a period of time. My grandfather was in government.
Oh, that's right. What did he do?
He was the head of the Veterans Administration under Kennedy and Johnson. And so when that was finished, they came back here. And my mom grew up in Northbrook.
Okay.
They had very different upbringings,
Yeah, I would say
materially speaking.
Yeah. I can relate.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah. We obviously grew up here. So, yeah.
How many are there? You have siblings?
Yeah. I'm the oldest of four. It's me, then Maureen, then Kevin and Matt, and we're all 2 years apart.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
No Irish twins.
No Irish twins. But yeah, all Irish, but no Irish twins.
Is it?
We sensibly spaced everyone.
My brother and I are 9 years and a day apart, and if you do the math, you can figure out that we were each conceived like on New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So
right, it's an amorous time.
Well,
it's a romantic evening.
Sure, for somebody it was.
Yes, right. A lot of whining and dining.
It was either that or the hand. Come on.
Right. So your birthday is in October?
Yeah. 1st of October. My brother's is September 30th.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, don't you have like the sober date coming up? Did it happen?
It passed. It's the week of Thanksgiving, or I'm sorry, of Halloween. And the reason that I don't have an exact date is because that last week was a little foggy. I remember being sad at the end that like I was missing out on like a bunch of parties and all that. I was like, man, I wish I could have knocked this off like a week later. But so yeah, that's 13 years.
13.
Yeah,
God,
13
congratulations,
years.
man.
Yeah. How about you? How much time are you in?
9.
Yeah.
Like 9.5. Yeah. So we're kind of the lucky ones because that would mean that your kids haven't seen you fucked up, right?
No, Tracy has.
Sure.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah.
But the kids never have.
I think that's why her and Nancy get along so
right. So Tracy was 4 months pregnant with my oldest Tommy when when I went into outpatient rehab and all that, and thank God at least through today the kids haven't seen me drunk. They've seen me other things.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Everybody thinks it's the booze and the drugs, but you take that away, you're still the same asshole.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I mean, for me personally, like I and my brother who I haven't talked to him in about 5 years, but hopefully he's sober, but he had a really hard time stringing it together. My parents, both sides had really, really bad issues with alcohol. Was it that way with you too?
Both my parents' sides have alcoholism issues. My maternal grandfather drank himself to death.
Oh,
and
fun times.
Yeah, like super awful and difficult.
God, I'm sorry.
But my parents don't have that issue. But they were always like very open with us about that being in the family.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to make sure that we didn't become alcoholics. And 3 of the 4 of us listened.
Oh, really? So,
yeah. So like my siblings are able to drink like normal people. For the most part. But that just was never really my bag.
Oh man, so you kind of like they probably love you because you like made it easy for them, right? The first one down the pike, and you're the fuck up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it was tricky because it wasn't like for a long time I just presented as like a hard partier, but I still got a lot of things. Done. And so it wasn't like I was a flaming train wreck the entire time.
Oh, okay.
But I think that it did give them like some sort of permission structure to not be
right. Right.
You're like, well, you're not gonna black out in the bathroom floor and piss yourself. So you're doing fine.
Were you a pisser? Did you piss a lot?
Not all the time, but it did happen.
It happened
way more than it should to have grown up.
Yeah, I was a puker, loud one.
Yeah, my the night before my high school graduation, I had only started drinking like when I was like in earnest, maybe the summer before my senior year, but like right away, it was like that. It was my thing, and
yeah.
And so anyway, the night before my graduation, the following summer, high school graduation, there was a party or whatever, and everyone went out, but nobody got as trashed as I did, and I woke up in the morning, and I was passed out on the bathroom floor. And I knew that like I hadn't just walked in and gotten there. And so my eyes opened and I felt terrible, obviously, like physically, but also I just wanted to die because I knew my parents were going to just lay it on me.
Oh man.
And that is what happened. And they were like, they're like, you know what you did last night? And I'm like, well, to a certain point, they're like, no, do you know what you did when you came home last night? And I'm like, no. And they're like, you walked in and you weren't making any sense. Then you took a piss in the corner of the living room. And I was like, wow, that doesn't sound like something I do.
Oh,
they're like, you had to be carried up the steps by your friend so-and-so. And he was so stoic taking you up the steps. And I'm like, stoic? Like I was blacked out, but like, I know he was just high as hell. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
That's a great day of celebration.
Oh, that's a good one. So you probably the shame probably hangs pretty heavy on that one, huh?
Oh, for sure. But I think we did the way I grew up. like my parents weren't like abusive in any way. They're just
Yeah.
like wonderful people.
They are. They're very charming people.
But they definitely lay the Catholic guilt trip on like hard.
Yeah.
Like, and they are like black belts at it. And so, I always remember thinking when I was growing up, I was like, man, I can't believe, my mom's gonna lay this on, or my dad, or, whatever. And I was like, I'm never gonna do that when I'm a dad.
How's that working out for you?
Not well. I kept at least like once a week being like, I'm just deeply disappointed by what you've done. And you're just like, God, man, like that transgression was rather minor.
Dude, there's the word disappointing coming from a peer. That one cuts.
Yeah. But I'm using it so often that I'm worried it's losing its luster.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's now it's becoming like a more blunted
Well,
instrument.
I see the way your children look at you, so I can imagine they're just like, yeah, fucking whatever. Disappointed.
Exactly.
It's not like they're hanging out, in their bedroom being like, you better not do that because Dad will be disappointed.
Dad will be disappointed. You don't want that. He's serious this time.
Oh man, dude, I grew up in it sounds like you had your family like communicated, right? Even though I was probably shrouded in a lot of like guilt and shame, but did you guys like talk things through or talk it out?
Absolutely. And my parents are very communicative. They've always emphasized communicating, and like the need for communication. And so, I'm not one of those people who can be like, the things that happened between like this year and this year where I did all these bad things, mm-hmm. is directly attributable to, or even somewhat related to like how I was raised.
Okay.
That's not my situation. Like I have zero excuse for doing what I did. Like I wish I had like some great story, but like, yeah. And then like this guy screwed me over, like all that, but it's not really one of those things. And so it's interesting, thinking about it that way. Like, I think some people just have it, and then some of us are lucky enough to, get to the other side.
Yeah.
And it could be like you have a lot of trauma in your past, or could not be.
Right.
But there are a bunch of other issues that I have that, but I don't think that I can like causally relate them to like a certain thing that happened when I was growing up.
Sure. Yeah. I mean? So like, the wiring, right? Yeah. I was one of those that had like the traumatic childhood. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stuff that took place that, verbal, physical, emotional abuse, like, my parents each had a really tough upbringing, in different respects, but they both had really, really hard upbringings, and, they were not equipped on how to deal with the traumas that they faced. And some of it was pretty gnarly and pretty graphic. And, when you don't know how to handle your emotions, you simply take it out on whoever's closest to you. And, that stuff like fucked me and my brother up. But my brother was like, he, was predisposed with serious mental illness, and, then you add in the trauma part of it that we both faced that was handed down to us. Thanks. And then you mix that with, alcohol and drugs, and, you get what you get, and it's usually not very pretty. So like mental health, I guess, is a big part of addiction as well. I think a lot of people I think there's a preconceived notion that, the chicken or the egg concept, right? Which happened first? Were they sick in the head and then they picked up the bottle, or did they pick up the bottle and that made them sick in the head? And it's usually, more times than not, it's the bottle made you sick in the head. And I think we find now through, studies and people being able to talk openly with someone else about it, you find that, well, mental illness is a huge part of addiction, and it's something that was always there, and the drugs or the booze or something that offer relief to that. It certainly did with me. I don't know what it was like for you, but I remember like the first beer that I had was a Rainier Tall Boy, white can.
High class from the start.
From the start, man. Yeah. I didn't have much money, but it changed my world, man. And, I was off to the races after that. But what was it like for you? What do you think? I mean, do you remember like your first drunk, your first high, whatever it was, whatever you did?
Yes.
That got you off?
Yes, I do. I also like had my family is very my family, the larger family, not just my nuclear family, is drinking is a big part of the culture. And so it wasn't like I came from a household where like drinking was verboten.
Right.
It was like, this is something that people do to enjoy themselves and people can do it responsibly and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
So, that I did not connect, my awkwardness or feelings of insecurity or, low body image or anything like that to drinking before it happened and after. I just knew that when I had this beer from a keg at a guy's house on Dempster Street west of Sheridan, so like
just up the road,
high rent area, and I had this beer and I was like, everything else just went into place. It was like, I belong here. I'm able to converse with these people. I don't feel awkward. And I liked the social setting. And then I was like, I think I am a social person. And then I didn't get like blackout drunk that night. I got like high school faded, where I probably had like 5 or 6 beers. So I felt awesome. Mm-hmm. And then that's how it started. And from then on, I never considered myself anything but somebody who liked to get after it. And I really truly believe that I was a plus for any room that I was in when I was doing it. This is in spite of lots of evidence.
I can relate, and I think that still holds true, just without the booze.
but my point is so the same thing happened in college. I went to a big partying school, and I didn't realize at the time, but like I drank more than everybody else.
Right.
Like, and people would, on a couple of occasions would confront me about acting badly or strangely the night before.
Like the day after, you mean?
Yeah. Or like, they're like, hey man, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah, why? And they're like, 'cause you went out and slept in the alley. And so you're like, oh, okay. And I remember the first time I was like, oh yeah, I had a little too much to drink. But the second time somebody confronted me about going to sleep in an alley, it was kind of like, well, just don't sleep in an alley again.
Yeah.
It wasn't like ratchet it back.
Right. You're like, okay, noted. So I just, I won't sleep in the alley. I'll find a car.
And that was kind of like my mode. And then I went to study abroad my junior year.
Where'd you go?
Spain.
Oh,
and
Jesus, what part?
In Sevilla, in southern Spain. And so I had this amazing experience there. Got blackout wasted my first night, and bad things happened. Like somebody I was with went to the hospital, and I lost my wallet, and I got mugged, and and I had to call.
I got herpes,
and I had to call my parents and tell them to send me some money or whatever. And the people I was with on this trip, like some of the, I just met them, but they were like weirded out by me.
Well, why?
Done the night before, and so at that
stupid America,
right? And so at that point, at the rest of the trip, that never happened again. Like I would go out and party and drink, but I'd make my classes at the university. I was living with a host family. Nothing. I wasn't like out of the bounds of what people were expected to do apart from that first night. And so that to me like reinforced this idea that like this is fine for me. I just have to keep it in the rails.
Yeah.
And it was not possible.
Yeah.
In my experience for me.
Right. Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, things get, first job out of college, I graduated early. My first job, I start bartending and waiting tables. I bartended for like
Perfect.
2 years. Right. And so I'm just
Perfect.
like, oh, this is great. Cause like compared to these people,
Exactly. I was just going to say
yeah,
that's your measuring stick. Like, oh, that fucking guy.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
But even there were probably like 5 or 6 occasions over those 2 years where those people were
Came up
like,
to you.
yeah. And they're like, hey man,
Dude, Rich, I've been noticing something about you.
hey man, are you okay? I'm like, why? It's like, cause you threw up all over the floor before you went to sleep in my bed. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you need me to clean up? They're like, no, I already did it. But like a lot of throw up got on the blanket. So I had to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I'd be mortified, but I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that just like kind of continued. And then, you know, you were talking about mental health. I went to law school when I was 23. And in the middle of my first semester, I was diagnosed with depression. And then later that semester, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Wow. So that early you knew.
Yeah. Well, right. That's when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything about it.
Of course not. You're 23.
Yeah. And that continued, you know, till I got sober, really. And, you know, like until I would go on meds, off, on, off. And the whole time just be drinking. And it's not like I'm bipolar because I'm alcoholic or I'm alcoholic because I'm bipolar. It's just like two things that are true.
Yeah. You know? It's like that perfect cocktail, the perfect storm, if you will.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's been, it was, I think at the end, it was really hard to let go of the idea that I couldn't drink anymore. And I think the reason why it was so hard is because it was such it becomes
like your identity.
Yeah. Such an important part of my identity. And especially at the end, really was like the only way I knew how to check out from anxiety and depression and mania and all that. Drinks worked for all that in the immediate.
Yeah. Did you do anything else besides, did you get like, you know, outside issues as they're called in certain places, you know, like Coke or any other kind of drugs? Were you into that stuff?
I only did cocaine every single time it was ever offered to me. And then I would only use as much as was available. But it wasn't like cocaine was like my first thing. I would always, you know, alcohol was always central.
Well, yeah, because it's there. It's everywhere. It's easy to get.
And cocaine was like, that's great if it's around.
Right.
But that wouldn't be like the centerpiece of my night unless I heard somebody was selling close by. And then yeah.
I had a family member of mine was my Coke dealer. So
that's convenient.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. We were going down to see one of my best friends had his bachelor party in New Orleans. And so one of my other best friends and I were going to drive down. The rest of these guys were like high flying finance people. So they flew. So our job was to bring the cocaine.
It didn't. What did you make it to, like Kansas City?
We made it to Memphis. We were doing the last of like the 8 ball or whatever.
You're like we got to tell them, like, man, it fell through.
Yeah. So they asked us about it, and that's exactly what we did. We're like, yeah, it ended up the guy not being able to come through.
Yeah.
And, so like that kind of thing.
Meanwhile, you smell like cigarettes and you're pasty white.
Yes. And so like the issue is like, it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
For me, like I have a problem with enough, like
right.
understanding the point of enough, like that's with food. That's with drinking. That's with drugs, like all that stuff, with worry, with work, like all that stuff. Like what I have it's almost like a blindness to that point. And you know, like we were saying before, like that's one of those issues. It's like you can stop drinking, you can have a program or whatever, but those are issues also that need, like, sobriety is about. I think it's not about conquering those things, but it's about being aware of them. Yeah,
it's I think the biggest takeaway from me recently, anyway, and stopping drinking and doing drugs, and getting sober, meeting these people that you can relate to. Like that was the big thing for me early on, was like everything was relatable. It was like we spoke the same language, right? But after about 3 years of being sober, I started to get really fucking squirrely, and my brain was going a million miles an hour, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on. right? And people would be like, why are you being such a dick? I'm like, am I? Man, I'm great. I'm running marathons. I'm sober,
Got it all sewed up.
Yeah, I got it all figured out, man. And so I got back into therapy, and through that, thankfully, and I had done therapy quite a few times before. I started back a few years ago, but I was never honest, and I wasn't honest with myself about my drinking, but I also was, I think, afraid to say anything about my past. I didn't want to ever look at that. And when I finally was able to have a look at that, I had a fucking meltdown, man. It was about a 3-year. I was like a 3-year nervous breakdown, and then COVID was in the middle of that.
I remember when you were going through that.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking ugly. But the point I'm trying to get to with this is that the sobriety, or the sobriety is self-awareness. It's being able to manage yourself in some capacity. I know some people in sober circles, they're like, oh, you're gonna, just keep doing it, and you're gonna sit around and wait, and the miracle is gonna happen. And it what fucking miracle is that? I mean, like, I'm present. I'm involved. I try to do as much as I can to help people. But that is something I struggle with, though, is like all the impulsive stuff that you talked about, like, the food and, overdoing everything, is taking care of other people and not taking care of myself. I mean, that's probably why I coach so much fucking kids sports, is because it's a great distraction for me to address what actually might be stressing me out. I was like, I'll teach these kids how to play sports. And I was reading something here while I was waiting for you to come over. And it was talking about how important silence is throughout the day, to just sit and be quiet, with yourself. And so I did that while I was waiting for you. I was like, fuck this. I don't do this. I mean, I find that I'm by myself and it's quiet around me, but I don't like take the time to embrace that. I mean, do you have, like, do you remember Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that dude.
Skeezers. Or a little out for Danny. Danny used to get up at like 4:00 in the morning or 3:00 in the morning, because he took a bus all the way up to fucking Schaumburg. But he would get up in the morning and he would light a candle, and he would hang out in the darkness with a candle, and he would sit there for like an hour and get himself like focused for the day. And that guy went through some shit, and that's what he used to set himself right every day. And it's that like simple little self-care. I mean, getting a haircut, getting your nails done, going to get a massage or whatever, that's all good self-care as well. But sometimes it can be just as basic as like sitting alone and being quiet. Do you do anything like that?
Yes. And it's never an hour
No.
sitting in the dark with a candle. That is like not simple. That's hard. Or maybe it's simple but hard. But another guy, another sober guy sent me. This came up a few years ago, where I was talking about how an inability to meditate or be still with myself.
Right.
And so he sent me an app that had meditation. Like in the room, it's like people are always talking about their apps and like,
I have them all.
Yes, my eyes always roll out of my head. But the last couple of weeks have been super stressful at work, and I was just really spinning on a bunch of shit I can't control, like other people's perception of me and like my reputation and like all that stuff. And I was just getting totally wrapped around the axle about it. Which is to say that like when that kind of thing starts coming, what happens is, for me, it accelerates as it's coming towards me. And then all of a sudden it's all on me, and I'm having a panic attack, and I'm being taken to the hospital because somebody of my size, they always just assume you're having a heart attack. So,
the Widowmaker.
Yeah. So this time I decided to like do the meditation app. This was on like Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
And it's like a stillness app or like a stillness meditation. It's like 10 minutes long. It's supposed to be just be still, like feel your body, let go of multitasking, all that. And I was on the way in the office. It was like 6:30 in the morning. And I was like, I'm going to put on this meditation. And I put it on and I'm like, this is making a lot of sense. So like, make sure you're doing nothing else. You know, you're just really focused. And like, while I'm listening to it, I'm driving the car and I'm listening and I'm drinking coffee. And it's just like, you know, so
Jesus, we can fuck anything up.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So I think like, I do think like it made me feel like a little better, but like, it was one of those examples of like, you know, I could do a better job on it and feel better, but for whatever reason, I'm like, no, that, you know, that's fine for Danny, but like, I've got shit to do, you know, like I got real priorities.
All right, hang on, man. We got to take a little break here. Hang on. All right, and that concludes the first part. That's right, first part of the first episode. It's so good, I split it into two. And I didn't tell you the title of that first one, which is Alley Naps, and I think by now you probably understand why. In the title for episode 1.2, 1A, 1B, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is Cocaine and Lies. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for part 2 with Rich.